Good evening from my heart and home to yours. Good evening from our guest, Heart and Home, from Switzerland,
Yeah.
Karen. And good morning from Big Heart and Home of Jeannie Colvin, my co host. This is TMS Roundtable, Global, Live. This is a first time for us in a long time, I think, that we've gone twice. And I've had the pleasure of rubbing shoulders with Jeannie Colvin as my co host. My name is Dr. Tovah Goldfine. I tend to forget that. I'm so excited tonight because it's a wonderful topic, and it's never fun to talk about symptoms except when we have the solution. And every week we are here, this week twice a week, talking about the solution. So I introduce Karen Ash. Let me bring up your name. Hold on. There you go. From Switzerland, but originally from North Carolina, correct?
Originally from the US. Yep. Grew up in New
From the
Jersey,
US.
lived in North Carolina. Yep.
Wow.
Jersey girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Karen, I like to start from hello, from the very beginning, when things at the very beginning. Sometimes Jeannie and I will chime in a little bit. We'll raise our hands so we're not interrupting. And would love to hear the details so our listeners can learn and take home insights and education and resources for their healing. So tell us about your life.
So I think the symptoms started, I can pinpoint back till the age of 8.
Wow.
And what was going on at the time is I had a substitute teacher because my teacher went off on sick leave. And it was multiple teachers were coming in and out of the classroom. And somehow that just really bothered me, made me really anxious before school. I didn't know who to expect and what was going on. And at the time, I developed a wart on my finger. And I don't know if that had to do with the stress of that or, because it's viral, that maybe came out because of that. I don't know. But at the time, also, my math teacher started calling me Miss Wartfinger. And all the kids obviously picked up on that. And I was getting bullied, and they were making fun of me in the class, in the lunchroom, apparently. And so every day at lunchtime, only lunchtime, I started getting stomach aches. And I would go to the nurse's office, and she was super kind and just said, lay down on the couch. And she just really took really good care of me. And I didn't have to go into the lunchroom, and I could just spend time with her. And so every single day, and miraculously, after the lunch hour, I felt better and I could go back to class. And yeah, it was really, and she did a lot of digging and realized, okay, she understood that the kids were making fun of me, and she tied it back to this teacher, and my mom got involved, and, obviously. And then by the time, the next year, the class had changed, kids had changed. We had the wart burned off. It was, that was kind of a non-issue. And so that leveled off. And at that time, so then I don't remember symptoms until probably 17. And a lot of, I would say, traumas or things that I kept secret happen in between those 10 years, though. It was really like a lot of different things had happened in my childhood. And by 17, I had a soccer accident on the playing field. I hit my head. And then it became this big thing that I had headaches. I was going to chiropractors, actually, Tova, you'll appreciate that. And my mom was taking me to all these different doctors, and the message became really clear. Something is very, very wrong with you. The headaches aren't going away. You did big damage. The way my mom would talk about it was really like, I saw her smash her head on a rock. I mean, there was no rocks for sure on the soccer field, but she just really was sure that this was why my headaches had begun. And so the concussion, I obviously had a concussion, but obviously that would go away. And then this is at the time too that I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to study in university. I'm trying to figure out what university to go to. I had no clue. I remember it being so stressful and not, everybody else seemed to understand where their life was going. And I just felt lost and floundering and nobody to talk through it with. I don't know. I had an idea to be a graphic designer and go to New York City. Pratt was like this dream school. And my mother was like, nope, too dangerous. You're not going to go to New York City. So then I had to regroup and find a new career or a new dream, which was, looking back, it's like, oh my gosh. And so my parents are teachers and they said, hey, why don't you do that? And without thinking through, like, what is my daily life going to look like? I didn't want to be a teacher. So it's on a soul level. And this is kind of like, yeah, where I get a little hippy dippy, but I think on the soul level, my body, my inner beings knew I was going way off path now. And I went to be an art teacher. And from the minute I got into school, like I just knew that I did not want to do that with my days. And I was liking the psychology classes. I was liking different things, but I thought it was just too disruptive. Like I would have wasted money for my parents. I didn't know if we could afford, like if I changed um, majors. I just was so scared to speak up to say, I don't like this because I thought not in trouble, but I just thought, this is going to take another year now and maybe we don't have the money. I made a lot of assumptions and I still did that continuing on in my life, that I just made big assumptions that things were going to be a problem. And I held back and I didn't say certain things. And it just cost me just shoving in different things. And at that point, then in university, I had daily headaches. And then within coming home from school that first summer, it was clear that how many I was having. I had been taking so many aspirin that I had a cut and it didn't clot. So then it was clear, like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, like, what have you done? And I didn't know not to take so many aspirin. And then I went to a neurologist, then got properly diagnosed with chronic migraine. And chronic migraine from a regular biomedical um, standpoint would be 15 or more a month. So I got diagnosed with that, put very quickly onto a preventative medication. And that worked for a few years. That was actually, it gave me some relief. I was able to work. I was able to do certain things. I didn't go into teaching, by the way. I conveniently couldn't find a job. I didn't look very hard. And so I moved back home, went into another whole, I went into sales and marketing, which was a very stressful job and it ended up, but it was fun to me. And yeah, it just progressed to a point where it just stayed chronic, but it was helped with medication. And then it was at a time when my parents or my grandparents had both passed away. I was very, very close to them and things started escalating. And I didn't, tie that back to this, but now I do, of just between them passing away and nobody talking about it. I never saw my parents cry. We never talked about it. And we were like very, very close. And it just became this like closed door. They're gone. We didn't have a funeral. It just was like that's it. They got cremated and they just disappeared. And I think in hindsight, that really messed me up because that was kind of even earlier in my childhood. I just didn't see a lot of emotion. We didn't talk about emotion. I remember talking about boys with my mom, and she was like, you know what? Like you change your mind every 2 seconds. Of course, it's a normal teenage girl, right? Um, you know, I don't want to hear about it. And so it was just always like emotions and processing things got shut down. And that was the beginning, I think, or a culmination of just really causing me a lot of internal, yeah, disassociation and just not feeling and going in all the wrong directions, trying to find love and feeling and whatever. So escalated completely, was on medication, started going on to more medication and more medication. And I kept saying to the doctor, I think that I'm getting more migraine with the increase of the dosage. And he was
Mm.
like, no, that's not how medication works. It can't be. And in hindsight, I think it was all these things had happened, the grandparents passing away and like all these different things. I didn't want that job. Yeah, there was a lot. And I decided I was going to quit my job and go over to Europe. I had some friends over there. I had this big thing with my mortality, like with my grandparents passing. I also had a client that I was really close to, and her brother got diagnosed with cancer and given 3 months. And it really affected me. Now I'm like 28 at this point. It just really affected me like, wow, like that's the first death that I kind of encountered. So I went over to Europe, quit my job, and said, I'm going off all medication because I can't get refills. So I don't know. And I had a plan of 3 months. I ended up staying 6 months, not one migraine, not one problem. Kind of, did you put that together? And it's like, I thought it was odd, but I just thought, well, yeah, maybe Europe had a different scenery, or like maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Did you think it was like the food
And
maybe, or
yeah, like
were
I
you
don't know
working at
what
that time, Karen?
not when I was in Europe. No, I had quit my job
Mm.
and taken all my savings and just went to travel. So I was carefree and really
Yeah, there
just
you go.
being in the moment, living life. Yeah. And then it turns again because then I came back home, had to get back into reality, had to make some money. But I think a bigger issue was that I got involved with a relationship very quickly as soon as I came back, madly in love, but turned out to be somebody that was very, um, well, in hindsight, he was on steroids. He was an owner of a gym, and he just really turned out to be very volatile, both emotionally abusive and then turned out yeah, physically. And so I thankfully knew enough to get out of that very quickly. But in 6 months, I still look back on that and I'm like, I can't believe how much damage can be done to somebody and their self esteem in such a short amount of time. Because I came back on a high, just empowered. Like, I can't believe I just did that alone and traveled all over and I figured it out. I could do all these things, and came back and crushed my
Mhm.
entire being and fell into a massive depression. And that was again this thing. The migraines I didn't mention. That was like, oh yeah, that's hereditary. Your father, your grandfather. Yeah, that's a normal thing. Yep, that's to be expected, basically. And depression, my mom ended up having a conversation with the doctor saying, oh, yeah, this runs in our family. Every female in the family has depression or anxious in some way. And yeah, so it was again this like life sentence of like, oh, yeah, this is just to be expected. And you need to be on medication now. And I was told actually that I should be on medication for the rest of my life for depression. Turned out not to be the case either. But and then, yeah, the migraines continued to escalate, and I really masked everything. People at work, like if anybody's listening now that I worked with back then, they'd be like, depressed, what?
Oh,
They would
wow.
really, I was so, and I used to say to myself, you should have won an Oscar again today because
I just see you like I see you like with the wart and everything else, continually hiding and ducking
yes.
your whole life, just
Yeah.
ducking and getting out of the way.
Completely just shoving myself into work and all the distractions. I was my sister had two children and I was an aunt, and I was, that was my silly time. I was really fun with them, and that was, so it was like I was deeply depressed at night and would come home from work and cry and just think like, what is life? Like, I don't get this. I looked into Buddhism, into crystals, into like everything. I was just searching like the meaning for life and just, what is the point of all this? Deeply suicidal. Like it was just not a good time. And then it was like a light switch would turn on and off. And it would be like when I was with my niece and nephews, I'd be like happy and silly and whatever. And then I'd go home and just be deeply depressed again. It was really a strange, strange time. And then, yeah, I mean, during that time too, there was a lot of random things like a frozen shoulder, food intolerances, allergies, to the point allergies like closing my throat and having really reactions that I don't have anymore. It's really strange. Um, Rashes, numbness, tingling in my leg, that kind of stuff. And at that point, then, and I had a business for 10 years during that time then. And that was enjoyable. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of travel. It was international meetings that I was putting on for the pharma industry. And but it was fun and it was enjoyable. And I had medication that was pretty good at covering a lot of the symptoms at that point again. And then came to Switzerland, and that was just it just kept getting more and more high profile jobs or more pressure, more um yeah, just, and by that time, my personality, I mean, the perfectionism and coming to Switzerland was like, you're an expat in this foreign land. You don't speak the language. You want to prove yourself that they made the right gamble on you to bring you all the way over from the States, move everything over for you, all this. I just felt like a really big pressure that to make sure that they made the right choice. And from the second I got here, the first week, it was so overwhelming just talking about all the acronyms and all the company lingo that I was just like, what? I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't know what job I even just took. It really was. And I had my first panic attack that first week. And I feel for anyone who has that because that was like horrendous. It was at night, thankfully, not during the day at work. And I just thought, oh my God, what have I done? Like, I just don't even know if I can keep up. I don't know if and that's how I felt for 8 years. It was just,
Aw.
and then the migraines were like 17 a month. It was, stomach aches. I mean, I had so many different things, but it ended up culminating into a burnout in 2020. And then the wart came back, that wart from the second grade came back, which I found that fascinating. I'm like, how did that happen? But it's viral. So I guess with all the stress, I thought that was funny. I burned it off again. Um, and yeah, so then that comes to the, kind of the better end of the story, if you want to hear that part. But do you have any questions?
Sure,
Maybe I'll.
it's the journey. It's the journey. Well, I can imagine the fear. Like, it's like Karen felt the fear and did it anyway, but her body was keeping, obviously keeping you in such a state of threat. And you were like living life, like we recommend, live your life and live with the symptoms. And you were just probably like numb and kind of numb can get us, numb can take us places. This is my sense of how you were able to function on some level. What do you think, Jeannie?
Well, first of all, I don't know, Karen, if you know that I was also I was a long-term teacher, like for many, many, many years. I was
I
like in
do.
my former life. But I've also lived abroad. So, but I was studying. But anyway, I can relate a lot to, I was learning Spanish. So was my Spanish good enough? And wanting to be kind of fit in when you obviously are different. So yeah, I was kind of wondering too about the migraines. Do you feel like the migraines were you, and it's, I like what you said, Tova, because there is I think for different people it's different. Like it is feel the fear and do it, but then for other people, I tell people like less is more. Like I want them doing less because they're kind of like that type A and they're just doing, 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 doing. Do you feel like that was you where you weren't getting your needs met? You weren't slowing down if you needed, like if you needed to slow down, if you're tired, you just would like push through kind of, was that what you were doing?
I think it was twofold. One, and it's, I did a lot of thinking when I was so I went on medical leave for 5 months and I reintegrated so slowly back into that job that even a year and a half later, I was only at 80%. So it
Yeah.
was not, I didn't ever function back there in that environment. But I think it's twofold. And I kept saying like it wasn't just the job. When I left on burnout, I resented the job. I thought it was everything about the job. And yes, there was a lot of pressure, I was in like a governance compliance type of role. So I felt a lot of pressure. Remember, I said before, like I made a lot of assumptions in my life and that got me in trouble a lot. I made assumptions of, I can never lose my job because I'll never be able to live here in Switzerland because it's so expensive and I'll never find another job again. Could I have? Maybe. There were so many restructures that it just made me feel so uneven and never on a steady ground. There were assumptions around if I made a mistake in my job, I would be sued or I would be in the lawsuit in the FDA. I would be on stand. I would be the one in trouble. The company would have never backed me. And I saw these cases going on in the US and stuff like that. And I just thought the pressure of that. And was
Yeah.
that realistic? I mean, yes, there were lawsuits going on, and these were $1 billion lawsuits, not millions. So I just thought, if I make one mistake, I'm going to cost the company billions and I'm going to be in jail. Like, I just really thought that.
Imagine
So,
that pressure. I can't
And
imagine that pressure.
and the pressure, as I've talked to you guys about, is the essence of a migraine. Wouldn't you would say that, Karen?
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
my
talk about that. Yeah.
every single day, all day, the brain was, or my messages to the brain was, I can't take it. I'm so overwhelmed. I can't do it. They're going to figure out I'm not as organized as I appear to be outside. Like I was scrambling inside. And then as I got closer to the burnout, I mean, I had brain fog, massive memory issues. I couldn't remember what was decided in meetings the day before. I'd be repeating myself. People, I had one good colleague that came up to me and really saved me a lot and said, don't call a meeting on that again. We already decided that. You decided that. I was like, I did?
Oh,
Yeah, it
wow.
was bad. I mean, and then I was
Wow.
snapping at people, like my personality had changed. I was just really, yeah, it wasn't good. But so I think it was twofold. Like the company, there was a lot of pressure. And then with trying to be perfect, trying to not let anybody down, um, trying to prove my mother wrong about me,
Mhm.
really, in hindsight, of I am capable. I did make a good decision coming here. I can do this job. Yeah, that was in the background of my head, which I didn't realize. Um, yeah, there was all kinds of things. But I also had two dogs that passed away during that time, like maybe 3 years before going out on burnout, and a relationship that ended. I never talk about like before when I was saying I didn't process emotions, I just sunk it right into work. No way, I couldn't even look at pictures of the dogs. I couldn't manage those emotions. And so all that just built and built and built and built into a volcano. I mean, it just absolutely, and then my body just absolutely collapsed. It just total exhaustion.
Mhm.
My brain wasn't functioning at all. And yeah, and then I had a counseling session, and she said, she's hearing me just bitch and moan about work again. And like, because I was put on another project too, 2 years before. And so I was doing two full-time jobs. I couldn't even do the one, without drowning. So I don't know how I was expected to do that. And she said, you can either sit here and complain to me for another round of sessions, but when are you going to choose you? What is it going to take? I had I forgot about that. Chest and heart pain 24/7. And I was like in the meeting, kind of like pushing on my heart, just like kind of leaning back, like pushing. And she's like, what are you doing? And I said, yeah, it hurts so bad. I like it. The pressure feels better. And she's like, and you're not going to the doc. How long has this been? And I'm like, oh, a couple months. What? And I just was like, no,
Um,
I have too much to do. I can't go to the doctor because I knew that the doctor would write me off. And I was like, no, what would everybody say? I can't lose the job. It's going to be a career killer. And I went, and she basically, that session was just like, you can end up in a hospital too, or you could choose yourself. But like, what is it really going to take? And why is the company and what people think of you more important than your health? Like, you need to think about that. And I called the doctor that day, and then they got me in, and then they called me back to say, oh, sorry, he can't actually get you in. It was on a Monday. It has to be on Friday. And I burst out in tears and I said, I can't make it. I can't make it another day. I can't go back there. And then he was like, okay. So then he called me on the phone and was like, what's going on? Okay. Gave me his phone number, like his cell
Aw.
phone number. I think he was so scared for me. Like, okay, like we're going to figure it out. Don't worry.
then what
Yeah.
happened? Then what happened?
Then his prescription, when I came in on that Friday, he just looked at me and said, what the hell took you so long? You look like shit.
Mm.
I had a really good relationship with my doctor, and I said, I know, I know. And he said, I want you to no social media, no talking to anybody. I want you in nature 1 hour a month, 1 hour a day in nature, and rest on the couch as much as you possibly can. In bed, on the couch, I don't care where you are, guilt free. He said, I know you. I want you guilt free, resting, and in nature. I don't care if you feel like walking, if you feel like sitting on the grass, if you feel like looking at a plant. I don't care what you do, and that was the first week prescription. I thought he was nuts. And I did it though, because I was desperate and I was like, I didn't know what he was trying to do. And then the second week, I had to see him every single week because of insurance and just, yeah, I think he was a little bit concerned about me. And second week was the same. Third week was like, you need to distance yourself from work. All your friends are there. All of your, your phone is tied into that, your computer's tied in, you need to like separate. And so I started doing that. And then I was feeling better, and I didn't realize what he was doing, but he was, regulating my nervous system at that point, just bringing me out of this fight or flight that I was just constantly braced. And even at night, like panic attacks in the night, like, oh, I forgot to do that. I forgot. Oh God, they're going to be mad at me. And like just braced even in my sleep, I think. So this calmed me way down. And somehow I didn't feel guilty with the rest. I just was like, this is needed. And I felt relief that he told me to do it. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it on my own, but he told me to do it.
Yeah.
And after about maybe on the fourth or fifth week, I said, listen, I've got issues or I have a history of depression. I feel like a complete loser. I feel like everybody's talking about me at that company, like that I couldn't hack the stress. I felt really the migraine somehow wasn't my fault. Like that was hereditary, I had thought,
Mm.
and it was just not but burnout felt like I did that and I couldn't hack the stress.
Yeah.
And so I felt really, yeah, that was, I honestly, I haven't mentioned burnout in my story until this year. It's 5 years later. That's how much shame I've had around that. And now I look back and I'm like, Karen, oh my gosh. But so I asked to go to a clinic actually. And it took me a while. I had started looking before I even went to the doctor just to see if there was like a spa that I could go to for a week. And I kept reading up on like, do I have burnout? What is the signs? And I thought, okay, maybe if I could just relax for a week, go somewhere. And so now I'm on sick leave. Talking to him, and he said, if you think you need something like that, I don't know. I mean, you could do it on your own. And I said, I need help that this will never happen again. And I need to understand what happened because something in my personality, something in my psyche, I don't know, but it's going to just happen. Then if I go back into that environment, you could keep me out for months and I think it's going to happen again. So he agreed. And that was the best thing that I could have ever done for myself because that is where I learned all the mind body stuff. They taught me nervous system regulation. We did stuff like Tai Chi and meditation. And I had never meditated before. Well, I had tried to, but I just
Mm.
thought it was like, I don't understand what this is doing for me. So they taught me what it's doing for me, why we're doing what we're doing, the Tai Chi, why we're slowing ourselves down. Progressive muscle relaxation I did for the first time. That was phenomenal. It was in German and they had to adapt certain things for me in English. So that was interesting. And then all my therapies were in English because I couldn't speak German. And yeah, it was just it was up in the Alps. It was like, I mean, it sounds like a lush, great thing. I had a hard time enjoying it, but yeah, the serene, really just calming. And by the time I was out of there, I felt like a different person. We had therapy also, like group therapy, individual therapy, art therapy, music therapy, movement therapy, like everything. And in that therapies, they were like, your personality is not helping you. Like it might have gotten you to a point where you've gotten this job. Is this really, we went over my values. I have never looked at that. We really went deeply into, what do you actually value? Is it the money? Is it the why? Like, the why behind all this stuff, the messaging that I had over money and why that was so important. Like we chipped away at so many things in that time. So by the time I got home, I felt really good. And I say now, I actually, or I just really recently realized I healed my migraine by accident because I was working on the burnout and I didn't realize it's the same root cause. And so
Mm-hmm.
now my migraine is way less. And then I started working on that actually after the burnout was kind of, I didn't have the extreme, the cognitive stuff started coming back and the energy was coming back a little bit. And so then I started working on all this. But back then, I mean, we didn't have the Curable app. I didn't know about brain retraining. I didn't know about Alan Gordon, Dr. Schubner, like none of this
Yeah,
stuff
me
was
too.
even a thing. But what I was doing was brain retraining. I was calming everything. I was feeling safer and it made just such a difference. So now more and more, I just, then I started really finding, well, I knew that I wasn't going to go back to that job, or I tried to reintegrate, didn't want to do that position, went into our wellness and employee health. So I was doing the stress management and the meditation stuff and all that. That was great. Couldn't find a permanent position and decided to leave them.
Wow.
And
What I'd like to ask you, so here there was a threat from the very first wart. There was some kind of threat, and your nervous system learned quite a habit of protecting you. And so, would you say that it was protecting you at some point from you, from your thoughts, from bad decisions, or not bad decisions, but jobs that, like, can you kind of sum it up? There's some questions about, your symptoms and about, but like, I think the audience might want to know what was the deeper emotion that was driving your amygdala. And maybe it was the shame, but like, what do you say about that?
yeah, I think I always was thinking of migraine as my main symptom, and that I've done some work on, like going back and what is the message? Like, why did it start around the time it started? What was going on? And I think it was this, I went off my career path kind of, or my life path. I think that I just listened to everybody else telling me what I should do. And I never had a clear voice and a clear, what do I want actually?
Mhm.
It was, I didn't know. And I really honestly didn't know. But it was, I also had this conflicting thing in my childhood that, my father thought I was like the best thing ever and was just like, you could do anything. And he was super, super positive with me. And my mother was like, no, looking for the, trying to protect me in a way, but like everything was like, no, you didn't do that right, or you should have done this, or that's going to come out not good. And, well, what do you know about that? How could you possibly do that? So it was this conflict already by 17, by the start of the symptoms of, am I good? Am I bad? Am I smart? Am I stupid? Like I really had no sense of who I was. And
Mhm.
so I think the symptoms were just sort of like, okay, like what does actually Karen want? And if you keep following this path, and then it was following the path of fear of finances, not being financially stable. That was a fear that drove me. And now I know where that all came from, but so it was continuing to try to, I think, wake me up to, you are so off course of what's important in life, what will bring you meaning in life, all the stuff that you're shoving aside that you're not even feeling. Like this isn't how you're supposed to be living. So that's how I look at it now, as just big alarms to say no.
Yeah, and I wanted to highlight something that you said. A couple things that are really, really important is, and I was, a teacher, and I live in Los Angeles. This is very expensive, and teaching isn't a lot of money. There was a lot of scarcity in my field, right? It's a very stable job. You can work there forever. You get a paycheck every month, no matter. It's not like sales where maybe your income changes at the levels. And so, to Karen's point, you have to look at the root, right? I thought just making more money or say, because I didn't make a lot of money, but if I did tutoring or whatever, if I made a little bit more money, that would bring me more safety with all the chronic issues and everything. And it doesn't work, right? More money isn't going to bring more safety because we're talking about the nervous system and we're talking about like trauma and personality and stuff. So you really have to, which is, it's, I got to talk about my money and work on my relationship with money. Yeah, because that safety isn't going to change. You're just going to make more money, then you need more money, and then you need, I have a client who just worked so more and more and more and more clients because of how he was raised and his nervous system with money. So I just really want to highlight that what we're talking about sometimes is excavating and doing healing on things that you don't think are the thing, right? Like we're doing healing on money often when we're like, why are we talking about money? My issue is migraine, or I have health, because that's the thing, right? Or we think a partner is going to bring safety, a relationship, like that security, a marriage, right? Safety, safety, safety. And then what happens if there's a rupture, there's a divorce, there's a breakup, then your whole sense of safety goes out the window. So we need to
Yes.
look at other buckets, right? Relationships, money, your job, same thing. Oh, safety in my job. And then guess what? People get fired, really, like companies
Well,
go down.
can we all agree that we walk away from us, who is the root and the problem and the solution, and we surround it with our defenses? It's my money.
Right.
It's my
And
husband.
the safety has to come from within, right? And feeling that power again. And, in the beginning, like, we work with people and that helps regulate us. And I wanted to say too that, I work with people all the time. I'm sure you do too. And me too. Like if we're in burnout, just relax. And like we hear all the time, I can't relax, or it's a Sunday, I can't relax. Like it's not easy and it takes time and practice, right? Guilt-free resting for an hour. I couldn't, or other people can't even guilt-free rest for 10 minutes. Are you kidding? So we just want to normalize if you're watching this and, oh my gosh, I couldn't even do 5 minutes. You're not alone. And just start small, right? Start at 5-10 minutes. So
So I want to address Kelly. She's sharing a couple of things, but I kind of maybe want Karen to look at the messages on the right and address, maybe somehow give Kelly some empowering statements. But she's not really asking a question. Do you have a question, a specific question, Kelly, for Karen? But maybe you can just
Yeah,
look at
Kelly,
her.
I'm just looking at the different diagnosis. I mean, yeah, it was all very much, this is your lot in life. This is your genetics. And now, now knowing epigenetics, I mean, I made choices in my life. I probably wouldn't have had children. I didn't really, that probably wasn't a path. But I really, with the depression and the migraine, I just thought there's no way I'm going to pass that along to somebody and make them feel like I have felt in this life. And I just didn't get the meaning of life even at that point, and just, but I made choices based on thinking that that was genetic, and it was sealed. And that pains me. I did a podcast episode on that recently, and I started choking up about it because I'm like, other women that are in childbearing years, that is just, I want them to know that's just not your lot in life if that is what you're being told.
And can I ask you a question too, Karen, about something we had talked about that I know you thought was important? Is that obviously migraine goes in the bucket of TMS and mind body symptoms, but we talked a bit about how we do treat it and our approach to it is a bit different. Can you talk about that? I mean, I know someone with back pain is just, okay, go do everything maybe that you did before. You can still bike ride, you can still do all the physical activities. Can you tell us, if someone hasn't had migraines or they're new to this work, that maybe the approach with migraine, like when we said, when the trains left the station, so to speak, how to help and comfort yourself?
Yeah. I mean, with migraine, it is a full body event. And some people get the aura, some people don't. So the aura is like you can have visual disturbance or even lose vision. You can lose hearing, tinnitus. There's all kinds of things that can happen. And um, when there's 4 different stages. The prodrome stage is when I used to get like really tense shoulders and it would go up into my neck and I would know, uh-oh, it's coming. And in the past, I would freak out and say, oh, it's going to derail my whole day. It's going to, and I would just panic, like, especially at work. Oh, I've got this and this and this to do. And I've got these
Sure.
meetings and I have this deadline and I can't miss this, and just get myself so upset. Now, in hindsight, I know I really escalated the problem for myself and really caused the migraine. So now what I do is I try to tell my clients or anybody else that when you start to, if you get to know your prodrome stages, and if it is the, tight muscles or whatever it is, yawning sometimes, poor sleep, different, you could Google prodrome or the different stages. To at that point, try to self-care as much as possible. I used to try to figure out, okay, what is the emotional trigger that just happened? What is, and I made myself crazy. And a few times I actually was able to stop the migraine in its track because I went out for a walk, I just ignored it, and I could, regulate it back down. But what I think is my message is that's the time for self-care. that's the time to send safety signals, because like I said, it's an all body. You may have nausea coming, there's dizziness, you just feel like hell. And the fetal position in a dark room, your senses are so heightened, smell, um, light, everything is just an assault on the body. And so I just say, hey, that's the time. Hydrate, do your self care, send signals of this is okay. I'm going to get through this. I've always gotten through this, and to really self soothe. And that I actually had sinus infection a few weeks ago, and I had 3 days of a headache, a sinus headache that would not go away. No medication touched it. And it really brought me back massive, like, panic of what I felt like with migraine. And that I remember just thinking to myself, you need to remember this for your clients, because now is not the time to be figuring anything out. Now is just soothe, soothe, soothe. And I could see the pain levels changing as I was doing those exercises. And that's the main message. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily mean the train has left the station, but don't try to go catching the train. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
I
Yeah,
want to.
it's different. Yeah.
I spoke to someone today, and I was shocked at she has chronic pain, but the doctors, scared her. And remember what Dr. Schechter said about, like, we don't remember even what we ate, but we remember exactly what the doctor said.
Yes, exactly. Uh-huh.
So, but the fascinating thing was, I told her to do something to palliatively take care of her hip, to, like, put heat on it. And she was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, you're allowed to self-soothe. You're allowed to take care. She was like, it's like I freed her of something, because we think it's so black and white, and we're allowed to take Advil. We're allowed to put heat. We're allowed to smoke a joint. I don't care what you do, but you need to calm your nervous system. And on that note, I am so fascinated by your doctor, how he
mhm.
treated you. And I want to say that's the minority of
Yeah,
doctors, but we can do that to ourselves. That's the beauty. That's the doctor. That's the placebo. We can take this advice, stop, and be okay. What if I was the good doctor? If I was doctor, what was the doctor, the good doctor on this TV years ago? Whatever, it doesn't matter. But this
Dr.
doctor,
Feelgood.
yeah, and like, what if I could just? And that's what we teach our clients, is to step back, witness, recognize, and how would you want to bring safety and calm? Maybe, Kelly, that's what you could do, is work on that part of your parasympathetic nervous system, rather than keep at. I know you're asking a lot of questions about, the pain and the symptoms, which it's not so important. I don't really want to talk about the symptoms anymore. I want to talk about the solutions.
Well, I
Solutions.
do want to just answer her one question, because she wanted to know how long. And I think
Yes,
this
that was
maybe
good.
helps her, that I suffered with migraine 34 years. So it's
Ooh,
not oh, you can't, it's been too long and you can't get rid of these symptoms or whatever. From 17 to whatever that is, 51 or whatever, I suffered. I mean, I would say I've been since 2020. Um, the recovery journey has been ongoing, and there's been certain things that have ebbed and flowed with my symptoms. I decreased, and I've been off of all preventative medication now. That was important to me. It's not important to, I don't even talk about that with my clients. For me, as a pain recovery coach, I put a lot of pressure on myself to not have have preventative medicines, because I thought, well, first of all, I want to know when the symptoms are coming so that I can understand why. And but that, yeah, that's not important as far as take medicine, do what you need to do to soothe yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
When we talked to Dr. Schechter this week, he really emphasized the individual path, right? Everyone in their healing journey is different, but everyone, yeah, some people might need medicine, might need more rest. I mean, and all of our energies are different too. Even me on the other side of recovery, I just know energetically, seeing clients and what I can do during the day, like what fits for me and my lifestyle, instead of comparing to like how I should more and more and more clients and busier days. And it really is kind of that know thyself too. and we can do more and get better, right? But it's just kind of understanding, what my nervous system and how it can help people. And I think it's like through this journey, don't you feel like you just like this huge understanding and knowing yourself better? And yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's life-giving work because the work that we do is just it's then a lifetime of tools that you can use that, like I said, I was working on values and this baggage around money and how much that was stressing me to if I had enough. That came from my mother. That came from her
Yes.
mother who lived in the Great Depression and was totally stressed if they had enough. And it was always with me, do you have enough? Are you enough? And once you chip away at all that stuff, then it becomes like, okay, this baggage that you get to release, and it's just a lighter feel, and you understand when certain things are stressing you, like okay, that comes from this. And but that's all lifetime. It just gives you a new lease on life, kind of. I
Yeah.
feel
I
like.
always tell people once we realize the power that we have, right, and the confidence that we have from this healing journey, then it can extend to other things. Like I launched my business after I got better and did a lot of things. So I see this big core. People start with me, and then when they're getting, all of a sudden they start talking about career changes or big changes in their life that maybe, I mean, I get it. It's like we're so weak, and that's part of what this could be here to protect us from, right? Like I wanted to leave my job, but couldn't do it because I was sick. And so it was a great, it wasn't fake. It wasn't, it was all real, but it was a really great protection of like, I can't leave. I'm sick. I have health issues. Definitely can't leave health insurance. I always tell people the irony of like me, this dependence on the health insurance.
Oh,
And then guess what? I leave my job and then I have like the most basic health insurance because I actually don't ever, I just use like the normal stuff. It's like when I was sick, I was using, you know, going to doctors all the time. And then when I got better, I mean, I have health insurance, I pay for it. Yeah. But wow, I'm not on tons of medications and not seeing all these
no,
extra
it's
doctors.
amazing.
Yeah.
What I think of sometimes is, and I think this, every one of us, I always try to say to people, we're not here to change you. You're you. Who you are is your core. This is your essence. But your body's asking you to evolve, and your body is asking you to change some relationships you have with your body. And this is why I really do love the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, because it's speaking to that we're in a habit that doesn't work for us or it's hurting us. Choose habits that serve you. Just doesn't mean you're doing everything right or wrong. It's just you're doing things that serve you. And for some of us, it means change, and it means like saying goodbye. Like,
Mhm.
God opens a door and closes a window. And this is hard for people to change. And yet, once we're on the other side of it, we see that we can do it when
Yeah.
necessary. Anything else you want to, I'd love you to talk to, there's listeners here, if anybody else has any questions. But Karen, I'd love you to share. This is an unusual story. This is like 300 and something broadcasts, and to hear that, you took yourself and went to a retreat. I mean, it'd be like, great, let's all go to a retreat. But it was what you did, how you did it, when you did it, how it worked with your doctor, the circumstances. I mean, you were down for the count. And the way it worked at the retreat for you, because it doesn't always work that way. So you had your stars aligned the way that you
Yeah,
were
that
able to.
wasn't a retreat.
Well, anyway, you're right. You're right. It did sound
That
kind
was
of
a
good.
burnout clinic.
I think
That
I would
was
have
not
liked it. I
fun.
think I would have liked. I like to suffer like
Thanks
that.
for. I haven't told that side of my story, by the way, you guys. But I think it
Mm.
is important to just realize that I know that I'm very fortunate that I had a full paycheck going into medical leave. I had health insurance that was top of the line because I was traveling so much. I did pay for extra like international insurance, but that paid for me to go to a clinic that had hours of therapy a day. So I know that this is unique, but it also just tells you what I did can be done anywhere. It's just that I had the benefit of somebody hand holding me and saying, okay, now you're going to do this, now you're going to do that. And it's going to lead you to working on your self-esteem, working on, what you actually want, working on your nervous system and all these other things, and explaining it all to me. So that was the benefit that I got. Later, trying to do it for my migraines, I went down the internet rabbit holes of 1,000 different times trying to figure out then what to do from there, not realizing I already had the tools from the clinic, but it was the same. Migraine was the same as the burnout. So it was kind of funny to make that loop, but it wasn't for another year or so that I made that
Very
connection.
good point about symptoms, because I hold the
Same
I
root
take
cause.
the fifth, like that. The symptoms are the symptoms, and when people are still saying on every Facebook page, my page, what about this symptom? What about that symptom? And I just want to say, kind of what Eddie says or what Brad says, or you know, it's not about the symptom, but yet I did I did speak to Vanessa about this and Olivia, who wrote the PRT workbook, and they look, people have migraines, have certain things they need to do. People have IBS. So I understand the specifics of the symptoms, but we have to understand the bigger picture, that it's our relationship. So I don't want people to get hung up on the symptoms.
Yeah.
And yet, and so again, lots of people go away on retreats and don't recover. So it is something about that you went and you did it, and
Yeah.
your investment and your timing and your soul. I just see it as you
Yeah.
you played a huge role in what
Can I
happened.
mention something? Actually, this is really, really important that I just got goosebumps because this maybe is going to help somebody. Um, when I was in that clinic, there were two very distinct groups of people, and I talked to my therapist way later to say, I'm seeing this. Do you see this? And he was like, absolutely. One group of people had a mindset that they were either so desperate that they'll try anything. They are open. Their belief was there. They were like, just tell me what to do. I am open. I'm going to heal. They had the belief that better days could come. Those were the ones that I was in that group that we all did well. And I'm in touch with a couple of them out of there. We've all gone on to do really great things. It's just amazing. There was a group of people that could not get out of their way, that were still in victim mindset, could not see that this was an opportunity. And I know that sounds crazy if you're still in chronic pain to hear that word, me say that it's an opportunity to get back in touch with you, to get back in touch with your real needs and what you actually need for your life to be satisfied and live authentically. And that group of people got worse and just did not heal. And the therapist confirmed, like, yeah, absolutely. I see that day in and day out of two distinct people that you'll either heal or not. So that is really important. The mindset is, and the belief is so key.
Yeah.
This is what, when I spoke to Michael Galinsky this month, and this is when, we're asking everyone about why we're stuck. Like, Kelly, why are you stuck? And not why, but are you curious? I like the word why. Rose always taught me, are you curious why you're stuck? Are you curious why the retreat didn't work for you? Nothing negative, no criticism, no judgment. But are you curious why you're still in the cycle of pain? Let's stay curious, open, compassionate, patient, that we will recover, that people will recover. It's a journey. And I think people, there's hope, there's belief, there's gratitude. And I want to stick to that, rather than, it's hopeless. Like, I want people to see the gift. I want people to see what the symptoms mean. They're not a victim. And this can be very painful for somebody, because I don't know, you're a coach. How do you look at someone and say, you're in your way? How do you do that, Karen? You're in
Very
your way.
difficult.
Move
But
out of the
I
way.
also want to acknowledge that a 6-day retreat is not going to do much. I mean, it's going to do something in the short term, but how much can you? I mean, we're talking, in my case anyway, I was reversing lifelong patterns and personality traits and ways of being that, that takes time to unravel and to understand and to buy into and to do the work to heal it and all this. So yeah, I don't, there are quick fixes, there are book cures and all this kind of stuff, but I think there's a lot of times there's stuff underneath it that we need to get to and understand and heal from.
in rounding out, like, where are you at now? And are you meditating? And are you journaling? And are you exercising? Like, tell us where you're at now, because you still live in Karen's body and Karen's head. You still have the ancestors. You still have the doggies. You
My
still
head is still overthinking, is now still a perfectionist trying to do this business as a recovery coach and helping people out of migraine and all these other symptoms. So I do try to walk the talk, and do meditate. I really do like to meditate. I like visualization a lot, but I get symptoms every once in a while. I mean, it depends on what's going on in life. I had a new relationship in December start. I was getting all kinds of different things with um, pelvic pain. Where did that come from? You know what I mean? New relationship. After 6 years of not having a relationship, all the stuff that comes into a new relationship. Was that coincidence that it was in my pelvic region? No. Was that coincidence that it went away after I realized and told the doctor I'm not going to do the PT? I don't need it. I know exactly what's happening. I am stressed and my muscles are tight. So all these different things that, certain things come up, but now it just is like, okay, mind body connection, and I understand the connection and I understand what's happening, and it stresses me less. And I understand, I do try to work on the stress load and different things, because there's always, life comes with stress. Aging parents, you got, all different things. So yeah, I do what I
tell us
can, but
tell us
sometimes,
about
better than
where
others.
migraine. Yeah, you're doing. Listen, you're doing the best you can, and Kelly, you're also doing the best you can. But tell us about where migraine oasis came from, because I love the name.
I was trying to figure out what I was going to specialize in, and whether it was burnout or migraine or whatever. And I realized migraine, when I was in burnout, I just felt like I was closed off and I didn't see the problem, and I couldn't, I was so stressed that I couldn't do the work. I didn't have time. This was the kind of state. And I just thought, I don't know if I could work with people right now in that state. This is 4 years ago or whatever, when I was starting to look at this. And then I thought, migraine people are just open. They're like, help me, like, this is, I understand, if you can help me do something. So I decided to focus on migraine, although I help people with all different symptoms. And migraine oasis came from, I just thought, I want something calm. I want something, the colors are chosen to be a calming, soothing feeling to it. The ginkgo leaf in the logo is symbolic for resilience and hope and vitality and peace, I think it is. So everything was very well thought through, of just this oasis of, you're in so much pain and angst and, yeah, misery when you're in chronic pain for so long, that I wanted just a safe oasis type of place to come to. And that's, yeah, why I chose that name.
And I just want to add, and I know people say it, and people like say it, yeah, yeah, yeah. Your body was protecting you all those years from the very wart, to the very grief that you never, said goodbye. I mean, not to have a funeral. I mean, cremation. This is hard for us. It's our mortality. And, you know, pain means something is wrong, but not this kind of pain. This kind of pain means that our body's protecting us. And that's a calming, loving hug. Everything will be okay. We've got to figure out what's protecting us, and we've got to bring, but not that you have to rescue, but we have to bring safety and calm. And I think that's just what I also want to leave. I want to leave every show with just, your body's not punishing you. Jeannie, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, just I agree. I mean, it's okay. I always say, like, it's okay that you don't know what the gift is right now. Just put that aside. And it's okay that you don't trust the process completely, and that you see why this is happening. But I think when you hear it enough from other people who've gone through it, you have to be open to the idea, right? So it's like, it's okay that you have resistance to this idea, but can you stay open? I think would be really, really helpful. That I don't really get it yet, but I'm open to the idea. Like, I'm willing to see things differently is a really good kind of change point, because there's something here for you. There's always, Dr. Hamscon says, there's always a reason why you have symptoms. So we don't just shut ourselves off and say, well, yeah, of course we can't figure it out, most of us, because we're only operating with 5% of the conscious brain, and this is all from your subconscious. So, I mean, join the club, right? The most enlightened beings are not able to figure some of this out. So.
Yeah, remember, all people with TMS are smart and sensitive and often brilliant, highly evolved people.
Yes.
And we're just in the way. Just in the way. So in honor of like moving out of the way, I call it coming from fifth gear to third gear, slow down, like we will recover. And, each week we're going to keep
Self-compassion.
Yeah.
Good.
And that's
That
a skill.
piece.
Good.
If
Yeah.
it's hard for you, you can get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That helped me tremendously.
Wonderful. So I'm happy we were able to go live without too much kinks. So I don't really want to be a technical person. I want to be Tovah, but I'm turning into a technical person. So I'm sorry if the sound wasn't well. And if we had a little echo, getting a little better at the technical stuff. So I'm being compassionate and not judgmental and like,
Yeah, we're not being perfectionistic. The message is more important than the perfectionism.
yeah. I just want to say, like, this is this March, it'll be like 7 years. And I used to have to drink like wine before I would go on, or smoke a joint, like to go, because I was so nervous. And then after a while, I was drinking coffee because I was feeling really good. And now I'm back to drinking sleepy tea just to calm myself down.
Well, yeah, we have to remind the audience, Tovah, this is nighttime for you. People probably forget. Yeah.
Not even that, but just like, this is not Mel Robbins. This is Tovah and Jeannie and Karen having a dialogue. Three passionate women who just like are relentless. And we all have symptoms. I don't talk about my symptoms or my anxiety. I mean, but you know what? I go to sleep with my coffee. I go to, I go to sleep with my fear. I have coffee with my loneliness. I go to the gym with my anger. I mean, and I mentioned this a lot, and Kelly, maybe this will help you. When people's pain goes away, they're moving with their emotions, and they'll say, "Doc, I want my pain back. I can't." And then we say, "Wait a minute. This is the magic. You're having a relationship with your feelings. You're getting better at feeling." And Doc Hansen talks a lot about we don't have the mental capacity for dealing with our emotions, but we can deal with physical things, another strength, and yet we're not balanced. We need to come back with the pendulum and be able to be okay with the fear, to be okay with the self-compassion, to be okay with screwing up and making a mistake. And that's not easy for us human beings. So in honor of being human, in honor of the humanness of all of us, the compassion, and Kelly, on the Karen's website will be on tonight. It will be uploaded on YouTube, and you can see Karen's information there. Karen is also on Facebook.
Yes, everything's Migraine Oasis, the website, Instagram, podcasts, all that.
So we'll meet again. I'm sure of that. So we have a lot to talk
Thanks for
about.
having me.
We have a lot of healing to do, and maybe we can all. The vision is to like have a big retreat in Israel, and everyone come and heal, and bring down the gods and bring down the heavens and go into the Dead Sea and scuba dive. So maybe someday we'll do that. But until then, I love you, ladies. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you
Thanks
next
for everybody
week.
joining. Okay.
All the best. Second.